مساء Menahot Daf Sadi Amud Aleph, 14 lines down by the Gemara. The Gemara says Mani. Who's our Mishnah that says that the measurements in the Beit HaMikdash were heaped? Mir Mir going to Mir Had Gedusha. He said only one. Either Bernard Hamim Had Mahukav. He said one measurement completely, and that was leveled. He said Olam Reb Mir Yizir Mir. Umay Kum doesn't mean all of them are measured, heaped. Kum Mididot, all the measurements were heaped. Okay. Midat Allah, Berutzin Kadosh said regarding liquid measures, the brim on top is Kadosh. It's a machloket. My committee was machloket based off of Tanakama Savar, Tanakama holds, Midat Allah, Nimshecha Ben Bifim Mehutz. Liquid measure was anointed on the outside and on the inside, and therefore the tip brim is Kadosh. Midat Evesh, Nimshecham Bifim V'lo Nimshech Mehutz. The dry measurement was only Kadosh on the inside, but not on the outside. That's why it's not Kadosh, the rim. Midat Allah, Ben Bifim Mehutz. Anointed in and out. Maybe the best slow clay cotton drowned not kadosh at all. The rest of it says eating all of them were done inside, not outside. But the reason why is machloket regarding the outside brim, the lach because liquid moves around. Therefore, whatever touches the brim probably moved inside already. That's why it's already kadosh. And dry matter does not do that. So if this would become move, what's the difference? What goes according to his intention. That would be the key. Marav Dimi Barashishna Mashmid Rav. There was a letter Klishrim Kashin Shlomo not be that it basically holds that you can make kadosh without intention. Ravina says, "La'olam emalach Klishret emakachin without no really it is only kadosh with intention." Ugzera Shemi Amru Motzin Klishret Lachol. And the reason why we treat that extra liquid kadosh is because we're worried that people might think that if you don't treat it kadosh, they might think that something that is kadosh can become non-kadosh. Motir Bizra. The question is here, someone arranged the lahm panim bread and the levana spoons on the shulchan after Shabbat. Then you burn the spoons levana on Shabbat. Pisla the pasul. Kesad yaseh, how should you make them both kadosh? Hello. Who shulchan yamin b'mi. Sorry, in a handle Shabbat haba, you should leave the bread in levana for the next Shabbat. Shafilu who al even though the bread on the shulchan for many days, and bekachum is no problem. Why does he say that? Maybe you might think if you say that, people might say that the bread is on there can become kadosh. Meaning, even if there's no problem of lina leaving it overnight, we should still make it pasul because if you leave it on the shulchan for many days, more than the regular 7 days, people might think that you're allowed to do anything like that in the kli sharet. When it says Pinim Mahutz Karamid, you're bringing me a question from stuff that's done inside the Heichal versus outside. Pinim Lav Kula Amiyadeh, Hutz Kula Amiyadeh. The Shulchan's inside. Not many people know what's going on inside the Heichal. Versus the other stuff, that's why we're more makbid because we don't want people to make mistakes there. The other Mishnah says, the extra Nesachim is used for the dessert of the Mizbeach. We keep extra. Not dessert. Dessert. My Motar Nesachim doesn't mean the extra. Maybe Haya versus Amar, Berusim refers to the brim on the measurements. Says no, but like we did in Mishnah, someone commits that he'll supply fine flour to the Beit HaMikdash at 4 se'az of flour per se'ah, let's say 4 pounds per dollar, just for argument's sake, easier to remember. Ve'amdu b'shlosh, then it ended up being that it cost 3 pounds per dollar. You said you still have to do 4 to give extra. Mishlosh says he agreed 3. I mean, rather than the price went up, price dropped rather, it went down to 4 pounds per dollar. You still do 4. Because the Beit HaMikdash has the upper hand. That's considered extra. Proof according to each. Another korban, bring the extra over there. And if you kept it overnight, it's limited to the night, it's pasul. If it's not extra, no other korban. You can bring it as a dessert of the mizbeach. What type of korban is dessert? Allah ta'ala. Habasar l'shem marot l'kohanim, the meat. This korban was given for Hashem, and the hides are for the kohanim. Proof according to Recham, someone was to bring the flour, and the shalosh اسمك بعربة مش لازم عندك معبد اسمك بعربة مش عايز أقول أنا مش عشان ما تعرف سخين كذا ده that's the coin discipline that's the proof the case of the extra flour being brought because of the price jump because we go coin بتمتاش. Okay نو مش نعم. Call كورونات على السيبور بأخي تهون نسخيم. All the community and private كورونات need نسخيم. حوت منها بخور ومعصير بحسها بحثات العشاء. سفر ده بخور معصير بسخ بحثات العشاء كورونات ترون need نسخيم. إلش شحاتته مش متورا وش متن نسخيم. وكان دي كورونات only بحثات متورا إن عشاء قربان need نسخيم. تمام. وعسيتم إيشي العشم. You should do for Hashem. What does that mean? יכול כל העולם השם יהייתם נזכרים. You may think that anything goes in מזבח, needs נזכרים, אפילו מנחה, ומנחה, אתה מדבר, אבל זה עולה, שלא מן העין היינו אפילו מזבח, אתה מדבר זבח, אתה יודע מן העין אתה מדבר, או זבח. יכול, אתה מדבר או. יכול שאני מדבר אף בכור מעשר, وبس بعد عشان ما include other coronas as well. بمعنى فعلنا ندير أون ندبات. بعد ما ندير ندبات هون نزخيم maybe I think as well. شئنا بعد ندير ندبات مثلا نزخيم هاي. Maybe it sounds like a corona that comes as a voluntarily donation or vow needs, but if not, then it does. مع شمال تصير إله. Therefore, the Torah excludes it. وتصير تحفظ تبعض محمد الرجال الرجال. Therefore, say not the teach me to exclude corona that are being brought the required corona during the Chagim. وما know what's that? Allah ترى شمال حاجات Allah coming seen بنمداش and خגיגה. כלומר, the pasuk says, או במועדיכם מועד החגים. כל פעם מועדיכם נצחים also the festival currently נצחים. משמע לה וכל התלמה, including all these, אבי סעירה חטאת או לבן חווה רגל נבי, meant to bring the חטאת goats, because that's also brought during the חגים, even though it's not part of the חגים. כלומר, וכי תעשה בן בקר, בן בקר בחיה, only the bulls included, ולמה עשה why specifically, בול, להקיש let's compare, מה בן בקר מיוחד בן דבבה, אף כל בן only voluntaries, excludes the חטאת. לעשות ריח נהורה להשם מן הבקר מן הצאן אתה אומר בפסוק telling you the fish number Allah once mentions Allah שמע לי אפילו Allah תן לוף שמע sounds like even birds תלמר מן הבקר מן הצאן therefore it mentions animals דיבר בישס according to Bereshia only animals need the נזכים you don't know how many notes אין צריך no need the pasuk הרי מה זבח could mention זבח the off אין זבח the birds not considered זבח אם כמעט לומר מן הבקר מן הצאן why mention the animals לפי שאדם אמר because אדם כי מכם קוראים להשם מן הבקר מן הבקר מן הצאן teaches you what? Yachol, you would think, how Omer Harei Olai, if you Muslim, the person says, I want to bring in Allah, I have to bring both. Tomorrow, the person says, Mina Bakar Minaton. That's how I can be a Shne, maybe you can bring either one, or both. Maybe you're not going to bring on the money, you crab on the Basuk. Amar Achi for why he said the halacha is I have to bring both of them, unless mentioned. But because he mentions both together, the Moshe says, he still needs a Basuk. Exactly, you would have thought, or Il Uchtiv Minaton, since the Basuk mentions, and from the flock. كمان كتير يعتقد that maybe anything is considered together, therefore teaching you they don't need to bring it together. ربنا شيء ده ما أعتقد لو كتير يعتقد كمان كتير ده إذا كان now كمان بيرش hold that even does not mention together we still read it as it's together. دي بعين كده therefore you shouldn't be so to see one's good enough. tomorrow says ها كتير إما الله كبرنا من بكار بإما نفسنا كبرنا. So in fact the Torah mentions separately teaches you the separate. فإذا كنت بيونتهم why need that? يصير still mention that. سلام يا بيونتات هني من فرش عندي when you say it outright. مستمع if you don't mention any specification لازم تراي may bring both carbonate much longer for teaching you only one أمر more تنا من الحين that they bring it to the need سهل نسخين تمار بس أو زبخ أتو على زبخي والمين هذا زبخ ساعة قربان excluding that is a قربان ما says it's ريح ثالثا هنا هو إيكالح since you would have thought that this is bad with it لو دي بعد نسخين it doesn't نسخين وما شنا عين زي was there will be different than the Nazir ram. The Ika بعد هذا هم بني تخيم it also has bread and تخيم. ما شفت منها حتى مش نامين. Over there you need two types of loaves. حقا أربعة من regarding the to that loaves need four types. Therefore you don't need تخيم كما شنا therefore it says we do. Okay. يقدر احنا بالفضل ندير بقى why this Torah should have only written donation or vow korbanot. We love بقى يلا don't mention Allah. Where it says إيه ده رح الله if not mention Allah have من الورثات فعست مجال عشان كذا. They would do out generalizing by saying I'll make a korban. They found that the Bab Prad then specifies vows or donations. لا عصود ريح نخوة خزار كذا then to give the pleasing smell to Hashem is another generalization. Clap at the call. Yes, another Prat. If you have a generalization specification generalization, you only go according to the specification. ما فرق فرش دفاع شيء نبغى there's like this education is voluntary, therefore not for sin. Of course, you know that. So anything else, not for sin needs an Nisachim. Therefore, I'm excluding Hatar Nashan because there's no sin. Aviyai b'chol ma'aseh bezach she'en b'yin achedim. I'll include b'chol ma'aseh and korban pesach that they are not brought for sin. Tamar, the person is olah to teach you all chiyuv korban that are excluded. Hashtag tiv olah klal pratikal ma'ir right. Not that you mentioned olah. What's the point of klal pratikal? Ma problem for us she'en mechav just like the specification of the olah is not something it's already chayav. Of course, she'en mechav anything else not automatically chayav. Lavi like for example, the children of the korbanot utamatam that they're substitutions that are made illegally. Well, حبة من المطرد or another that comes from extras, or Vasham Shin Zagariah, or Nasham that came from great that was designated as grazing because it was brought in extra as well. The Chaz Vachim Shin Bechul Shemar or Kabban is not slaughtered for the right reason. All of these are excluded. What's up, Amen.